Hello and welcome to the 79th episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Mark Lee, and I run the Sole Practice Club for Accountants. I'm also a mentor, speaker and debunker for accountants.
And I'm Philippa Haynes, a brand expert for accountants, supporting you to stand out.
Each week on the podcast, we showcase another experienced accountant or bookkeeper who we think can inspire and encourage other accountants and bookkeepers in practice.
We both recognise that every accountant and bookkeeper is unique and distinct. They have different backgrounds, experiences, and reasons for starting and building their practices.
So we ask them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. We look to explore what makes them different in terms of their background, their successes, their failures, and their focus.
And our aim is really to provide some fundamental insights for others like you, our loyal listeners.
If you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Philippa or me. We've got one slot available later this year. It's actually budget day. And if you don't mind coming on the podcast on the morning of budget day, that would be great. Otherwise, we're looking for guests in January and probably not anyone who still suffers from the January rush.
Yes, okay. So today in our 64th interview, we are delighted to introduce Stuart Harris. That's not 64th, is it? It's something like 79th, Mark, I think. Anyway.
79 episodes, 64th interview.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, we're delighted to introduce Stuart Harris, who likes to be known as the friendly accountant, and we'll find out more about that in a minute. He's based in Woodside Park in North London, although he is a South London boy, and has 30 years experience in the profession, for the last 18 of which he has run his own firm with a small team. Stuart specialises in providing a number of distinct services, including people and businesses emigrating to and from the UK, trust accounts, charity accounts, solicitors accounts, and a lot more, as I'm sure we'll hear later.
Welcome, Stuart Harris, FCCA. What would you like to add to that intro?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I think the one thing maybe that I'll try and get across this morning is, so basically I'm set up as a small business myself. And that's sort of my bread and butter type of client as well. So sometimes when I'm advising, it actually comes from personal experience as well.
Love it. That's a really great point and a really important one that not all accountants, I think, recognise. And certainly not all clients get that message from their accountants. That's a great point to start with.
We'll hear more about that in a minute, but before we start, we must thank the sponsor of our podcast, Pinnacle Global Group, the trusted offshoring partner to over 150 accounting and bookkeeping firms across the UK and Ireland, led by London-based chartered accountant Mayank Pandya. With offices in London and Mumbai and a team of over 300 professionals, Pinnacle provides both compliance resourcing from accountants, bookkeepers and payroll admins to tax and audit associates, and also value-added support, including management accountants, virtual finance controllers, financial analysts, and more. They're GDPR compliant, ISO certified, covered by professional indemnity insurance, and offer flexible models, part-time, full-time, or pay-as-you-go. You can even start with a trial period or join their sponsored trip to Mumbai to meet the team in person. Find out more then at www.pinnacleoss.co.uk or click the link wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Also supporting the podcast is the Tax Advice Network. Their website enables accountants to choose specific specialist tax advisors for general tax support or for help across any of over 100 areas of tax. It's free to use. You just pay the tax advisor that you choose after agreeing terms with them, whether for ad hoc or for a regular tax clinic type support service. Go take a look at their website, find a taxadvisor.online, where you can also register to get their weekly tax tips, which are written especially for general practitioner accountants.
Yeah, and finally, before we start the interview, just a reminder to subscribe to our podcast on the Patreon platform. This is where you can show your love and support for Accountant Success Secrets, but also receive exclusive Patreon-only extras, which are fantastic.
You'll need to indeed. Yes, you'll need to download the Patreon app. Once you're subscribed, you'll get the extra episodes via your normal podcast platform, if that's what you want. They feed through to Spotify, Apple, or whatever. You'll find details of what to do in our normal podcast notes and on the Accountant Success Secrets pages on Facebook and on LinkedIn.
Right, let's get back to Stuart. As you know, we aim to keep the podcast to around 30 minutes, and we do that by focusing on specific key questions. Over to you, Mark.
So let's go back to the start, Stuart. How and why did you come to set up your own accountancy practice 18 odd years ago?
Well, my background is originally from a family firm down in South London, my father's firm. So I started there. And I think when I decided to get to do it myself, it's a very British thing. We like being our own bosses. I think the continent, they're not into it so much. They like to work for other people, and they rent their houses as well. We like having mortgages, owning our properties, and working for ourselves.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly.
And when you started with your father's practice, and I think you worked for a number of other local practices.
Yeah.
Before you started your own practice, how did you go about getting your first clients for your own practice and building up to where you are now?
Networking. That really has worked really well for me, and it's something that I advise clients on as well. So advertising has never really quite worked for me. I do have adverts, and I do social media as well. That's quite good fun, but actually getting out and meeting people is the main thing. And over the years doing the networking, I've met some really nice people that, once like and trust them, you can pass some good business. And
you sound like a BNI fan. No, like
I've done my time with BNI, and in fact, part of my story is actually falling out with the head guy as well. But that's another matter. But what I always add to that, though, is I learned a huge amount from them. And the other thing about it is that it's not just, so instead of sort of me sitting here and waiting for the phone to ring, you're actually physically going out there and doing something to get new work to come in. And it's quite reassuring, especially when you're starting a new business. You're not quite sure, are people going to want me? Will they want to use me? So that I quite like that as well.
How did you get from your father's practice to your own then? What was that sort of stepping stone like?
Right. So I was with my dad.
I
was with my dad about 20 years or so.
Oh,
and
well
actually, so basically when I got married, I emigrated up to North London. And then really, as I said, it was a couple of jobs and a partnership that didn't quite work out. And I thought, actually, I've got to be careful to be polite on a live podcast, but I then decided, okay, I'm going to do it on my own. And I did say to my wife, probably like a lot of people do, I said, look, if it doesn't work out, I'll get a job.
I did that.
But it did work out. I absolutely love it. You can see I've got a sort of I'm now sort of top of our house. We've got a 3-story townhouse, and I'm in a loft conversion. Work-life balance is actually very important. And that's something I've sort of learned to love as well. I still do long hours, but it's on my own terms. People sort of ask, oh, do you bunk off? It's very occasional, but when I do, it's probably when my daughters were younger, doing school runs and stuff like that. But actually, you've got to look after yourself to then be able to look after your family. And so working hard is important, but also making sure you look after yourself.
Yeah. So, when you set up on your own, where did you think you would get to? And has that road been as linear as you expected, or has it sort of or have things changed?
Ooh, that's a tricky one, actually.
It is, isn't it? It is. It's just, what did you expect, and where are you versus that?
I suppose my expectations really came from sort of knowing how the profession worked from my dad's firm.
Yeah.
Again, when you start new and on your own, yes, it's a bit scary, but sometimes you do your research and basically you've just got to go for it. I tell you, the thing that I can't stress enough is the technology. Actually, I've sort of grown up with it, from school and then from my working life as well. The technology is absolutely amazing, which is why I can work from a loft office now.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. And what have you learned along your journey that's helped you to get to where you are now that perhaps others can learn from too?
Ooh, I'm a bit of a magpie. So basically, if I see a good idea, I nick it. But actually, and actually, that's, certain ideas are there to be had and to be used. Technology is still the main thing. I think it is. With me, there is an element of boys and their toys. I absolutely love my gadgets. I'm an Apple Mac man.
Yeah, me too.
But the important thing is actually how you use the gadgets. The hardware is amazing. My professional software is incredible. We've even got things like the online bookkeeping systems nowadays. You've got Zero, Cashflow. My favorite is Free Agent, QuickBooks as well. We've really got some clever stuff there. And then we've got the AI coming in now as well, which is also very interesting and very clever.
Well, we'll come to talk about AI in the Patreon's only part of the podcast later. But just going back to the software and picking up on you being an Apple Mac guy, as am I. I imagine the move into the cloud made a huge difference in that years ago, not all the accounting desktop packages worked as well on Apple Macs as they did on Windows. But now everything's in the cloud. We don't have to worry about that. Did that change what software you chose to use?
I was lucky. So my IT guy was absolutely amazing. So initially, I had a small server in my office, physical server. I drove. So I'm with Iris. They provide my professional software. I drove them potty. In fact, I had to almost hide it that I was doing it on an Apple Mac. They didn't really like that, but I did it anyway, thanks to Ben Riley, my IT guy. With the cloud software, so Iris I use their hosted system, and it's absolutely amazing. And I was using that long before lockdown. So when lockdown happened, it didn't actually affect us at all. So basically, myself and my staff, we log in remotely, and we just get on with it. I was worried at the time, everybody was, about what was going to happen during COVID, but as I said, really we carried on exactly the same way. Very lucky.
So I think we talked about off recording that you had a team behind you. I don't think you asked that, Mark, did you? So how many people have you got, and how do you all interact? Because as you say, you're happily ensconced at the top of your house working remotely. What's the kind of configuration of the team then?
So I've got 2 full-time staff, and I've got about 5 or 6 subcontractors. We've got one of those telephone systems that basically plugs into the router. So basically, when calls come through, we just pass them across to each other. I often get asked, "Oh, do you miss not talking to people, in the room or whatever?" And the answer is actually we're on the phone to each other most days, talking to each other, emailing, messaging. It's not for everyone. The working from home bit is not for everyone, but I'd noticed, certainly with small businesses, certainly before lockdown, the change was already happening. A lot more people were working from home. It works best for services. If you're buying and selling products, maybe not. But for services, it just seems to work. It's something we've sort of grown up with and just gone with it.
I mean, because some people still talk about it as though it's a big deal, but it feels to me like it's just how it is with you and the team. So that's really great. You said you were a magpie earlier, but so I always use the term magpie as somebody who likes shiny things and kind of they're not necessarily as structured, but they sort of get easily diverted. That's a sort of personality type from my sort of work that I do. But when you say you're a magpie, what does that mean for your business? And
Oh, I tell you what, best thing is I can give you a good example. So I've got this little thing. So if we do some work for a client, say, some accounts and a tax return, so it's a self-employed sole trader. So people's tax bills are due January and July. So we send the work out. We send an email. We do most of our we send most of the files actually on Dropbox. Accounts and the tax returns, and then what I do once everything's been, or once we send things out, I do what I call an e-reminder. So going back to what we were talking about with the Apple Macs and electronic calendars, so it's basically an invitation to a meeting, except all it is actually a reminder to pay the tax bill. So I do that January and July. I do it 14 days before. So if it goes into the client's electronic calendar 14 days before the tax bill is due, they get a little reminder how much they owe, reference number, how to pay.
Oh, I love that.
So I used to be quite wary about mentioning. So if I was at a networking meeting, but actually I haven't actually seen any other accountants copy it. I haven't actually got a problem if they do. I haven't got a copyright on it or anything like that. But it actually achieves two things. So it used to be that accountants used to get bombarded with phone calls around tax payment times. Oh, how much do I owe? That sort of question. So it minimises on that, but it does also help the client. They know exactly how much they owe and when. I still get a few people phone up from time to time. That's absolutely fine. But it's just a little thing it just seems to have worked for me over the years and for my clients.
Well, using your language, Stuart, which I'm going to make a comment about, I'm sure that a number of people listening to this will want to nick that idea. And the reason I say using your language is it's one of the things that riles me a bit, is when professional people talk about nicking stuff in that way, and we all know it doesn't mean steal. It means be inspired by. But I'm on a one-person mission to encourage us to say inspired by rather than nick, because I think it sets up, it sort of implies that we're dishonest people. So
I've got another little thing as well. So this also comes from a networking mentality. So I know lots of other accountants locally. Some of them are friends and colleagues. So actually sometimes we'll pick each other's brains, and that's actually quite important as well and healthy. So another accountant might know something that I don't, or vice versa. They might want to pick my brains about something that I know about. And the bottom line is the client gets help. If there's a problem or an issue, you're looking to help the client, and some people, not just in accountancy, some people are a little bit insular. It's all me. Oh, is that person going? I'll use the word nick again. Is that person going to nick a client of mine? It doesn't happen like that. If you're friends with someone, it just doesn't happen.
And that comes. I mean,
absolutely.
That leads me to the friendly accountant, which you put here on your kind of name, but also you've got that on your website as well. So
and his LinkedIn profile.
And your LinkedIn profile, which I know people say, oh, we're friendly and stuff, but I genuinely think you've kind of made, you've focused quite a lot on that. What does that mean to you and the business then?
Well, it's simply a bit of marketing. I was trying to steer clear of the Monty Python thing that all accountants are boring. I mean, the truth is we are boring.
No.
No, it's true. But as I said, what it was, I was messing around in a networking meeting, and I used it as a tagline, and I got a chuckle, and I thought, oh, that's a keeper. I'll keep on using that. There is a serious side to it, though. It is actually, obviously it is marketing, but I also, it's with clients, it's explaining things in plain English. It's being available if they call and they've got something they need to ask me. I'm available. So there is actually a lot of hard work behind it, but if I get a chuckle, I'm happy for a couple of weeks.
Lovely.
I love it. Love it. I don't think accountants are boring. I think it's the work that accountants do people consider is boring. And I would think it's an important distinction to make. You're not
Again, they've got that wrong as well, because actually my thing is I've got lots of clever people, with my clients, I've got lots of clever people doing clever things, and a little bit like being a parent, I actually get quite a buzz from that.
Yeah. I get that completely. I think it's wonderful. And it's not just marketing, because it's evidencing who you are. Yeah, you are evidently a friendly guy. I could tell that immediately you came on screen this morning. We hadn't met previously. We talk about networking. You are a friendly guy, and highlighting that fact for particularly, it's like a friend of mine does headshots, and he calls himself the headshot guy, specializing in people who don't like having their headshots done. Most people say they don't like having their headshots done. John specializes in that. A lot of people say accountants are boring, or don't like, they're too serious or whatever. You're just I'm a friendly accountant. It's glorious.
Yeah.
I do have to be careful though. I've got a silly sense of humor, so probably almost schoolboy sense of humor. So I have to rein it in a little bit to be I've got to be professional as well.
It took me many years to rein it in, because I can relate to that. I'm going to say 110%. Can't be more than 100%. I know, but I just so relate to that.
So anyway, I mean, we've talked about all of the sort of exciting stuff, but there's always, when you've got your own business, there are always those bumps in the road and those mistakes. I mean, what do you think that some of those have been for you, and how have you sort of tackled them, would you say?
The biggest mistake I've ever made is trusting Arsenal supporters. I'm Chelsea.
We're not going there.
I know you're not going there, but I got it in anyway. I've been dying to get that joke in. So it's a tricky one. I think the serious answer is, over the years I've made loads of mistakes. The common thing is you do have to learn from them, and actually, if anything, you've got to be not afraid to make mistakes. I firmly believe, and this is again advice I give to clients, if you're going to be doing something, you try and do your research, and try and minimize the risks, but sometimes you've just got to go for it. And sometimes things go wrong. Actually, I can think of one situation which I won't go into that one, which was actually quite stressful at the time, but I learned from it. Actually, I'll tell you a little more. It was someone that I knew was money laundering, so I had to report it. At the time, that was quite stressful, but
it would be.
You get through it, and you learn from it.
Yeah. So what did you learn then? Because I mean, I suspect, was that learning around seeing the signs, or kind of what?
A little bit of that, yes. Because initially I trusted the guy. Actually, funny enough, my wife didn't trust him, so I should have picked up more on what she could see. But I think in life and in business, you still have to be careful. You still sometimes have to keep your guard up. I'll tell you a phrase I quite like. So this is something we learn when we're doing our exams. Professional skepticism. It's a sort of an auditing phrase. That's quite a useful ethos to have, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're looking at something and you think, oh, that's wrong, but you might look at something and think, oh, I'm not sure about that, so you test it. If you're happy with the test, you can stop there. If you're still not sure, you test a little bit more. But it's just not taking things for granted. It's checking things. Does that look reasonable? Does it tell the story correctly? So that's been a useful phrase over the years.
And it's an important skill as well, as you say, an ethos, an attitude, an approach, which some accountants, I think, try to sort of downplay it, because it can get in the way of building positive relationships. I know, like you, I've become, I suppose as I've got older, I've become more and more cynical, because you get burned every now and again. But like you, I had a key situation where my wife's view on the other person was really important. and saved me making a huge mistake, because she's a better judge of character than I am.
Yeah.
I could tell you that now. If your wife knew me, it would be a different story. No, but seriously.
I'll add something to that. Teamwork is important as well. So actually hearing another opinion is sometimes quite important in running a business. So again, my wife's actually a school teacher, but again, we talk, and a lot of what she says is clever stuff. And I've got that with clients as well. So, sometimes husband and wife businesses, it's teamwork.
Yeah. So I mean, with all of these things, do you put processes in place? So when you onboard a client, do you do something specific, or when you're looking at an idea and is this right or is it wrong? Is there a way that you go about that, or are you relying on gut feel?
Well, with most firms, there is a process. So our Iris software actually takes us through that process. The one I'm a little bit iffy about is you've got the usual thing. You get a passport photo and a utility bill. The systems actually are changing this autumn as well. Actually, Companies House are bringing in some new stuff. I haven't quite got my head around it yet, but I mean, my attitude is, passport photo and a utility bill. If someone's clever enough and crooked enough, is that really enough? So, and as you say, some of it comes from sort of gut instinct. But the problem is it hardly ever happens. The adverse stuff hardly ever happens. So I'm talking, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 instances over a 40-year period. Who knows?
And I think that's important. I also think it's less likely to happen to a friendly accountant who's chatty and looking to build a relationship, rather than just do things by the book and just process some stuff. And I suspect that this may be naive of me, but I suspect that the fraudsters tend not to go for accountants like you.
It used to be HMRC had got a sophisticated system that can actually flag up dodgy accountants and dodgy clients. I'm not quite sure they're up to it at the moment. Again, one of the things we might talk about later is the problems with HMRC at the moment. It troubles me sometimes that HMRC go for low-lying fruit, and by that I mean sort of genuine mistakes. And then don't go after genuine fraudsters. So there's a bit of that going on at the moment. That's one of my little bugbears where I've got steam coming out my ears.
I can understand that, and I know how frustrating that is for accountants generally. And I also know from the work I used to do as an expert witness and advising on how to avoid professional negligence claims, that the level of proof required to really get fraudsters and criminals is sadly higher than the honest among us would want it to be. But anyway, we'll try and avoid HMRC. Amazing. We're coming to the end of the main part of the podcast, which I just find astonishing. Philippa, having heard everything that Stuart said today, just before I ask him to share his contact details, what would you say makes Stuart Harris Associates unique and successful?
Well, I think we've touched on it quite a lot, haven't we, about this friendly accountant. And I think anybody can say, oh, we are this kind of accountant, or we're not boring as accountants. I don't think necessarily that what you say about yourself is always the truth, but Stuart obviously oozes the kind of just accessibility, don't you, and kind of good at networking and chatty and that sort of thing. And I that's obviously a really big part of it, and that's how more accountants should be. But sadly, it's not always the case. People are still encouraging them to pick up the phone and sort of send an email. So the communication, I think, is really important, but it's downplayed a lot. There we go.
No, I think well said. Now, Stuart, how can listeners find out more about you and your practice if they want to?
Well, got my website, or very simply, it's Stuart, Stuart, at sha-friendly.co.uk. So Google me, find me, talk to me.
Nice.
Lovely. Well, thank you for that. And in our extra bonus interview for Patreon subscribers only, we'll ask you to talk about the biggest challenges you're currently facing in the practice and how you're addressing them and how you're integrating or resisting AI in your practice. But before that, Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my primary stomping ground. So yeah, and if you're looking for somebody to support you to create a story around why your practice is unique, and are looking at upgrading your website, and thinking more about your marketing, then I can support you. So just get in touch with me on LinkedIn, and we can have a chat. And Mark, what about you?
Well, thank you. Well, one thing I've learned after years of working with accountants is that running your own practice can feel lonely, even when things look fine on the surface. If you're lucky like Stuart and you've got some other friendly accountants nearby to network with, that's great. For those who don't have that facility, I run the Sole Practice Club, enabling accountants to network online with me, facilitating and adding my own two penneth worth. As an expression I never use. Alternative, if you'd like things to feel clearer, smoother, or more rewarding, then maybe it's just a conversation. I'm always happy to have a chat, no pressure, no pitch, whether you're after better clients, fewer frustrations, or more profit on your terms. Sometimes one good conversation is enough. Other times it might lead to us working together more regularly. But in the first case, just reach out and let me know, and we can have a chat. In any event, please reach out and connect with both Philippa and me on LinkedIn, and do please follow the podcast pages on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Patreon.
Well, yes, sadly that's all we have time for today on the main podcast, but thank you very much, Stuart, and we will be chatting a little bit more in a minute. Our thanks again to the sponsors of the podcast, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO Mayank know that you heard about Pinnacle Global on this podcast.
Yeah. Also supporting the podcast, thank you to the Tax Advice Network, the easiest way for accountants to reach specialist tax advisors. Remember, there's no charge for using their website, findataxadvisor.online, to find a specialist that you might work with regularly or just on ad hoc cases. You can also access their weekly tax tips, written especially for general practitioner accountants.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the love online, subscribe and leave a review on Apple, Spotify or YouTube, or just let us have feedback to us directly too. That would be great. It all helps to broaden the reach of the podcast. Do please also contact us if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast. I think Mark said we were looking primarily at January now. So
yeah. And also the morning of budget day in November.
That's right.
We haven't got anybody there yet. Thanks for that, Philippa. Thanks again to Stuart. You've been a wonderful guest on the main podcast. Next week, our guest will be Penny Allard, who runs a multi-award-winning bookkeeping practice in Leigh-on-Sea, and I happen to know also credits Philippa with helping her really evidence her brand story. A key client of yours, I recall.
Yeah.
Before then, we're going to get further insights from Stuart for our Patreon subscribers. So please head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/accountants success secret, singular, don't ask. That's where you'll hear about the biggest challenges that Stuart's currently facing and his approach to them, and his attitude to integrating AI into his practice too. Otherwise, until next week or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life, bye-bye for now.
Bye.